We quickly picked up where we left off with Ghoul burning up the battlefield with his hellish flames. One moment he stands menacingly, the next he vanishes out of thin air. The demons paying attention can't help but feel a heavy sensation incoming. It all happens so fast that one of the soldiers just feels his skin getting pierced without seeing what caused it. Ghoul appears behind enemy lines, continuously scorching the ground. Zeke is woefully unaware of the slaughter happening in the vanguard. He is too fixated on Shuya-Un's barrier. But when Ghoul gets close enough for his presence to be felt, the Wrath Demon Army captain's eyes widen in shock. Before he even gets the chance to twitch a single muscle, the young orc is already up in his face, caving it into his skull. Ghoul makes sure to exert some extra force and rage while flattening the butcher's face. As he does so, dark liquid tears flow from his eyes. A single attack devastates the lands as the poor captain is dragged around the concrete. The dust and debris ultimately culminate in a loud boom that can be heard all around the battlegrounds. Ghoul stands before his victim, his intensity not diminishing. His right foot is planted deeply on Zeke Kenraki's head, a demon so hyped up only to get bodied by a kid in a few seconds. But I guess Ghoul is just built differently like that. Looking at the demon that killed Chief Garrick, Ghoul's anger flares, and he stomps even harder, causing a loud snapping sound to echo out. The stomp carries with it a raging flame, forming a circle around the execution. Ghoul's flames get so massive and intense that they almost form a fiery cyclone. As the fire grows more and more, so does Ghoul's anger for these intruders. The blood orc inside him is finally awake, and all it took was the killing of the butcher and painting the ground with demon blood. Kaliana turns towards the commotion and can't believe her eyes. Even the soldiers nearby are frozen in shock. Their invincible captain Zeke goes down and out in just a split second. If you listen closely, Ghoul's heart and his whole body are throbbing wildly. It looks as though he is struggling to control the scorching heat inside him. A few meters from the slaughter of the butcher, Elder Gurren is experiencing excruciating pain. The monstrosity known as Shuya-Un laughs maniacally at the enormous size of the Elder's spirit beast. He urges the Beastmaster to hold on while he takes all of it out. It's like getting skinned alive as the Elder's draconic spirit beast continuously gets shaved away from his body. Envy Army mages are also hard at work to maintain the hold of the barrier to protect the process from any outside forces. Ghoul is within earshot of the despicable dome of pain, so he hears the Elder struggling and roaring in agony inside. He slowly turns his head around to see what the screams of pain are all about. Recognizing that it is the stern voice of Gramps, the dark clouds in his eyes clear up, and the sweet, troublemaking kid resurfaces. Ghoul sees the Envy Demon Army captain smirking with satisfaction nauseatingly. The dark clouds immediately come back after being triggered by the despicable display of torture. He starts walking up, leaving the disfigured corpse of the butcher to warn Shuya-Un not to touch the Elder. Stomping all the way through, he makes it to the outer rim of the defensive dome. Ghoul grunts and raises his foot, covering it with flame and priming for a point-blank attack. One kick is enough to shatter what is supposed to be an unbreakable defensive spell made by multiple demon mages. Ghoul's fire looks as though it is eating and disintegrating the very essence of the barrier. Shuya-Un is still grinning from ear to ear, thinking that this personal mission of his was too easy. But when the young blood orc closes the distance with an even more concentrated flame focused on his foot, the decrepit captain's smirk evaporates. This is not your run-of-the-mill flames. Contained within is the force that erased the butcher's life in a split second. Based on the intensity of it, maybe it's an even stronger attack. Shuya-Un grits his teeth in frustration. His people were supposed to deal with these kinds of interruptions. The old demon is forced to stop his stealing process to duck and dodge the incoming attack. Shuya-Un is so greedy for the spirit beast that even when he's about to fall from the impact, he's still desperately clinging to its essence. Ghoul's attack creates a vacuum that draws in every demon around, including the portal-making Suri-Min. The platform that the Baron made is also dislodged from its position, while Elder Gurren is still attached. Thankfully, the force is enough to knock the old orc out of the platform's embrace. Still, the damage is done. The spirit beast coating his body is depleted by a lot, and blood is coming out of his orifices. Shuya-Un regains his footing. He is literally fuming with anger as his soul-cast Arendama is interrupted and cut short. He doesn't give a damn about his soldiers, officials, or even about the culprit. He is just devastated that his technique was interfered with. The decrepit demon is so confounded because he can't finish extracting the dragon out of the Beastmaster. Suri-Min and the Baron are sent flying close to each other. They don't see what caused the commotion. Something just explodes in their faces, and it is too sudden and chaotic to see. Shuya-Un needs someone to blame for this disruption. He starts throwing a tantrum like a kid, for he only managed to get half of the precious draconic spirit beast that was supposed to make him perfect. The culprit obliges by reappearing beyond the smoke and dust with his leg primed for a full swing. Ghoul is stretching his legs over his head, and Shuya-Un manages to catch a glimpse of the incoming attack. Seeing the one responsible for messing up his plans, Shuya-Un's voice turns cold. Everything happens so fast. but the decrepit demon still manages to take up a proper stance while dodging Ghoul's assault without any wasted movement. While Ghoul is suspended in the air, his attack failing to connect, he is at the mercy of Shuya-Un's next move. The old demon's legs plant deeply into the concrete, trying to increase his momentum. Then with a sudden explosion of strength and movement, he aims for the young orc's side with a kick of his own. It looks as though Ghoul manages to get some semblance of guard up at the last second, but the demon's legs are as big as his entire body. The sheer force from an attack like that is enough to send the young orc flying like a ragdoll heading for the mountains. Dust and smoke continue to rise on the battlefield. For every one of their attacks is just that impactful. Ghoul continues to fly against his will without any signs of stopping while hitting the ground painfully multiple times. When the momentum from the demon's attack starts dying down, Ghoul crashes and gashes his whole body on the cold hard ground. He passes all the corpses of his brethren strewn around the battlefield, swimming in their own blood. Most of them aren't even given the chance to fight back as they are chained up. Will Ghoul be added to the astronomical losses that Puba's village just experienced? The young orc tries his best to get up, gritting his teeth through the agony while the demon slowly and menacingly makes his way to Ghoul's position. It's an understatement to say that Shuya-Un is pissed off. Ghoul basically wasted the demon's only opportunity to take every ounce of the legendary golden dragon. Now that's a sin that the Envy Demon Army captain cannot afford to forgive. Ghoul, who had been on a seemingly unstoppable rampage, was now bloodied and beaten. Even Ahmad, that critter inside his mind, had never seen anything like it before. From his throne he urged Ghoul to do better and get his ass back up for another round. The young orc tried, but the bleeding was getting too hard to stop, and Shuya-Un was just lurking ominously in the background. If Ahmad were in control, he would love to dole out the pain to the demon tenfold. This was not the first time Shuya-Un had seen a blood orc, but the last time was when he was a kid. He didn't expect to see a relic of the past in the form of a kid tonight. He proclaimed that Ghoul had just messed with the wrong demon at the wrong time. Wasting his only opportunity to take every ounce of the gold dragon was a bad move. It was a sin that this hateful demon just could not forgive. Just as he was about to continue threatening the young orc, his heart started beating irregularly. It caused him to shiver uncontrollably. It must be the golden dragon, grew Tom. Shuya-Un's body hadn't absorbed the immense power properly yet, and to think that he only got half of it out of the Beastmaster made it even more regretful. Bracing himself, his anger for what Ghoul had done continued to rise. He proudly proclaimed that there's no one in the world that can save Ghoul now. Shuya-Un walked forward, his mere electrifying presence terraforming the ground below. The young orc was still reeling from the damage he sustained earlier. He started talking to Ahmad on the verge of tears. He can't do it anymore. He can't possibly fight that big lump of angry demon meat. Ahmad replied with an annoyed voice, asking Ghoul if he had forgotten what these demons just did. What that big lump of angry demon meat did. Recalling the torturous state that Gramps was in, Ghoul's fire started sizzling a little hotter. The dust has settled once again, and the view of the chained up and slaughtered orcs became visible. There are those that died of blood loss from dismemberment. Some were killed by painful concussive blows. Ahmad asked him again if this was the extent of his rage. The blood orc inside Ghoul knows that it's not. They're one and the same after all. The only way to vengeance is to massacre all the demons like they massacred the villagers. Ghoul felt the raging emotions inside his mind and started trembling. Ahmad has presented him with the only way to sate the rage burning up his body. It effectively gave the young orc a second wind. A much stronger and feistier round was incoming. Just as the flames of hatred consumed Ghoul's tiny body, Ahmad's face contorted to a devilish laugh, seeking only vengeance. He cackled like a maniac while watching Ghoul become consumed by his whispers. What comes after the initial explosion of fury is a serene stillness in the middle of hellfire. Ghoul lets out a long and steady breath, centering himself as the calm before the storm slowly passes. When he opened his eyes, he pushed his body and legs to the limit and burst like a bullet out of the barrel of a gun. Shuya was already expecting that the little one still had some gas left in the tank and responded with a bum rush of his own. The lunatic even looked like he was enjoying this fight way too much. His left knee has been extended out to deal some serious damage in one blow. Ghoul easily stopped the seemingly unstoppable momentum with his own leg matching the captain's power. The immovable object has collided with the unstoppable force. A sonic boom exploded, clearing out the field in a potent manner. Unfortunately, our boy came up short in a battle of direct forces. This time, however, he didn't land like a ragdoll. He managed to steady himself as he landed. Without wasting another second, he launched himself like a mortar round ready to get back into action. Shuya wasn't expecting such a quick recovery and retaliation as Ghoul landed a kick right onto the decrepit demon's chest. Based on the demon's ugly-ass expression, it's safe to say that it hurt like a mofo. Persevering through the pain, Shuya raised his shaking fist into the air as tight as possible. He answered Ghoul's kick with a punch that would have certainly erased a normal mortal's life. The soldiers knew better than to interrupt. This ridiculous battle was wildly out of their pay grade. Throughout the whole fight, Gul was getting clobbered all over the place. The captain of the Envy army didn't get where he is now without the strength and experience to back it up. Hell hath no fury than an old demon scorned. Sensing that Gul was still breathing atop the rubble of destruction, Shuya refused to let up. He summoned the Golden Dragon's power, at least the half that he managed to steal as specks of golden scale appeared from his body. While preparing what looked like a finisher move, the captain yelled out for Suri. The second-seat lieutenant instantaneously responded and ran into action to receive her orders from the big boss. It looks as though Shuya was still having trouble digesting the gargantuan power of the spirit beast, and wanted an escape path to get out of boobies immediately. This is not looking good for Gul at all. He might look like he's out cold, but that might not be the case, as his legs were still twitching. Suriman used her scepter to rip the fabric of space and opened a dimension gate that they could safely use to withdraw. The young orc knew what they were doing, and he refused to let them run without the proper consequence. He would gladly grit his teeth and push himself to the limit, just to prevent the Envy Demon captain and his goons from getting away after everything they did. Shuya looked onwards. Not letting Gul out of his sight, he was starting to feel threatened. He asserted that the boy just got lucky this time. But this won't be the last time that they'll meet, and he's sure of that. Gul refused to listen to all the arrogance and bullcrap that the captain was spewing. After positioning himself for maximum momentum, Gul took to the air like a ballistic missile launch. His guttural roars of rage filled the entire battlefield with heat and pressure. From up above, he started coming down to the ground at terrifying speeds, resembling a meteor heading for land. As Shuya was being swallowed by the dimensional portal, he warned Gul to pray that they don't cross paths ever again, or the kid will never see the light of day. Shuya has some balls to spout some threatening words while retreating like a rat. The portal had closed, and the Envy Army posse was nowhere to be found. Gul's meteoric strike landed on nothing but the ground, causing needless destruction. Kaliana watched everything unfold, including the scene of how the remaining army captain bailed on the rest of the army like the bastard that he is. She was effectively left to fend for herself and the remaining troops against an unpredictable factor in the form of a small red orc. Gul looked as though he was operating solely on instincts at this point, uncontrolled by any rhyme or reason. He slammed his head to the hard ground in frustration for not being fast enough to catch Shuya. Gul had gone through a lot in the span of a few minutes. The injuries he had sustained were not light by any metric, but the most painful thing he's suffering from was failing to kill and skin that bastard Shuya-un alive. The emotional scream of regret, pain, and defeat resounded around the battlefield, shaking the very ground he was kneeling on. Elder Goran slowly stood up, shaking from the injuries and bloody wounds he sustained. He's still weakened from 50% of Grutom getting stolen. He tried his hardest to open his eyes and saw little Gul agonizing with tremendous pain. With the main threats gone, Gul entered some sort of catatonic state while he was still standing up straight. Within the smoke of his fiery fury, some slight movements can be heard. The mages of the Envy Demon army have been left by their boss after risking their lives for the barrier. All they could feel was the menacing weight of the air emanating from the kid. As soon as they tried to follow their captain's example and escape the battlefield, the unmoving blood orc swiftly sensed their movement. Gul focused his remaining strength at the tip of his toes and took off with lightning-fast speed. Wrath and Envy Demon soldiers alike were trying their best to leave this forsaken battlefield while they still could. Unfortunately for them, there's a little orc hungry for demon blood. Gul's first target was woefully unaware that he was about to breathe his last breath. A kick with unimaginable momentum and weight behind it sent the poor mage spiraling into the air with a crisp sound. The demon's head was planted into the ground, his body unmoving and lifeless. Another one looked at the little red killing machine with debilitating fear in his crooked eyes. He knew that standing around and doing nothing would certainly get him killed like his comrade. So, he chose the next best choice and made a run for it. With his weak legs, he tried to get away. Like a heat-seeking missile, Gul rushed to cut off the escape route by aiming his kick at the straggler's skull. It was forceful, swift, and brutal. The kind of execution that we can't show on YouTube. Kaliana watched everything devolve into chaos with annoyance on her face. It doesn't make sense for an orc to have that kind of tremendous power. They were being picked off by a kid with the ferocity of a vicious monster trapped inside a tiny body. The bright full moon hung above Booba's village, or at least what's left of it. A demon with black wings and a grotesque tail has been watching the entire war and is interested in this unexpected turn of events. Everything was set into motion because of Shuya and his schemes. The winged demon was imagining just how thrilling it would be to see the demon lord's face when he learned about this juicy information from a single war. Standing above the burning village, the winged demon celebrated with exhilaration like a real lunatic. From the top of the mountain, with the wide view of the battle, he jumped down to a downward free fall. Just seconds before hitting the ground, he turned his body around and opened his wings. The winged demon flew into the night sky, who knows what this may imply. Kaliana still refuses to accept the crappy situation she has been stuck in. Captain Shuya went off on his own, and Captain Zeke is lying in a pool of his own blood. They were supposed to be the cream of the crop, the strongest demons in the army, but they were killed or driven away by a single young orc. Gul wasn't looking so hot either. I mean, I'm sure the fire makes him literally hot, but the injuries he sustained are no joke. So does Elder Gurren's condition. He is coughing up bile and blood while the remaining golden scales in his body are starting to dim. His breathing is slowing down, getting more labored and rugged while the blood loss leaves him teetering at the edge of death. Kaliana saw this and activated her soul cast on her spear. She still has her pride as an officer of the Wrath Demon army, and she refuses to let a kid run rampant, killing the remaining troops. Priming her weapon for a finishing move, Kaliana spun and flared her spear around while increasing momentum. When she finally got a hold of the perfect angle and the perfect level of power, she aimed at the target. One thing about her is she never misses. She yelled at the demon soldiers to get out of the way, as her next attack would certainly devastate the immediate surroundings. Before the spear left her grasp, a familiar bloody ponytail signifying the strength and wisdom of the village waved in the air. An attack of immeasurable speed zoomed into the battlefield with deadly conviction. It looked as though it was headed for Gul, who was starting to lose control, screaming like an animal in the heart of the war zone. A fatally injured muscular body ran into the frame, aiming to shield the young orc from the incoming sharpness whistling through the air. Elder Gurren mustered all the remaining strength in his weakened body to intercept a deadly sneak attack. Gul regained his senses once the sight of a bloody blade sticking out from the Elder's back came into view. It lodged into Elder Gurren's body that it still managed to graze Gul's shoulder, nicking him with a flesh wound instead of a fatal one. If you were expecting the attack to be Kaliana's spear, then you would be extremely wrong. It was the Dark Knight desperately looking for the Beastmaster. The mysterious figure opened his mouth. He was relieved that he had finally found Grudem the dragon. The death of the spirit beast equates to the death of its master. Elder Gurren was already on the precipice of demise, but the blade lodged in his chest just made the process much faster. He spouted out copious amounts of blood for one last time as the air slowly left his body. With the last bit of the orc's tenacity, he tried to move his hand to hover around the speechless Gul. He grabbed the kid's whole head, causing Gul to jump slightly in fright. Elder Gurren started talking to his longtime friend inside his head. He addressed Grutom, or what's left of the spirit beast at least. Goodbyes are incredibly hard, but they have been pushed to the point where that's the only thing left to say. As the crimson skin started dissipating and Gul's green body came back with teary eyes, he tried to talk to Gramps. Elder Gurren just had one wish, one final request. He just wanted the Golden Dragon to take good care of the young lad, the remaining orc of Boobies. The Elder pleaded if not for the sake of their longtime partnership as Beastmaster and Spirit Beast. When Gul turned back to his original form, all the pain and wounds caught up to him at once, passing out and hitting the floor. Mr. Dark Knight expertly drew the blade from the Elder's back, spurting out even more orc blood on the battlefield. Elder Gurren felt the pain of his internal organs getting eviscerated by the blade on the way out. He screamed in unbearable anguish. A few seconds later, the Beastmaster closed his eyes. Elder Gurren fought valiantly as hard as he could, but it simply wasn't enough. He died as a warrior protecting the next generation. Gul knew that, at that moment, he knew just how deeply the old man cared about him. He went back into an unconscious state with tears streaming down his face. Kaliana was on the other side of the field, still clutching her spear. Her soul cast was wasted, and her thunder was stolen by the mysterious figure. She can't complain, though. The Beastmaster is dead without her making a move. The Dark Knight expertly cleaned the orc's blood from his blade and put it back into its scabbard. Kaliana finally got a clear look at the culprit who came out of nowhere just to land the killing blow on the Beastmaster. She called the hooded figure the Forsaken One. In distant lands where the pace is less frenetic than the land of the orcs, people went about their day as usual. An old man is being berated for being so cranky just because he didn't get a chance to take a bite of some dumplings. Even the demon settlements are as chill as hell. There are two youths comparing muscles and more. The common denominator among all these varied places was a single bounty poster for a wanted individual. For those who dare to challenge their luck, bringing in the Forsaken One to the nearest guild could net 20,000 gold. Dead or alive? Some newbie adventurers looked at the poster, and their eyes were glued to the astronomical bounty on one person's head. It's the biggest bounty you can see for just a single guy. The newbies were brimming with unearned confidence, braggingly promising each other to take the Forsaken One's life if the situation arose. But Chris, a platinum-ranked adventurer, overheard their ridiculous situation and strongly advised them to abandon all thoughts of taking the bounty. Seeing a well-known adventurer discouraging them from apprehending a criminal was confusing to the newbies. It's their job to do these kinds of things after all. Chris admitted that it is their duty to keep the peace, but going up against the guy in the poster is simply an impossible task. By his estimation, one would need an entire army to take down the Forsaken One. A revelation that shocked the newbies. The veteran adventurer added one more piece of advice. If they see the shadowy figure of the said criminal, there's only one thing that anyone can do, and that is to run for their lives. That fearsome and enigmatic figure just crashed the party and dealt the killing blow to the Golden Dragon and the Beastmaster. Who would have thought that the Elder would fall by the blade of a different beast and not by the hands of the demons? To make matters worse, an Envy Army soldier mage started screaming a warning for the remaining troops that Dark Elves had arrived. His loudmouth earned him a vicious blade on the neck, killing the bastard in one hit. Then, the rest of the Nightwalkers started pouring in with lethal momentum, not letting the small fries get a single counterattack against their blitz. Commander Camuriel made her entrance with a flare, landing like a superhero on the ground. Her orders to her elite crew were simple: let no one come past them alive. Spill demon blood everywhere. The Nightwalkers are not labeled as the elite of the elite in the Elf Kingdom for nothing. They were swift, coordinated, and efficient. Kaliana's headaches just kept on increasing. The arrival of the Dark Elves is a serious matter. Her troops, and she herself, are in no shape to put up a fight. Each of these Dark Elves had their own unique weapons. We've already seen Rand's, his multi-purpose dagger attached to a magical string. Those strings quickly swirled and wrapped around the Forsaken One's joints, preventing him from making any sudden movements. He's supposed to be caught in an inescapable bind, but the enigmatic figure just stood still nonchalantly. Layla the gorgeous Dark Elf is the Nightwalker's representative when it comes to hand-to-hand brawl. Tonight, she might be going up against the person that most adventurers fear. She knew that this fight wouldn't be easy. It might even be the toughest one that she'll experience. Meanwhile, as one of the remaining highest-ranking officers in the field, Kaliana commanded her soldiers to collect themselves and retreat accordingly. Try as they might, the speed of a normal soldier demon was just not enough to outrun a well-trained elven assassin. The Nightwalkers kill without a hint of hesitation. They don't mind getting their blades or their garbs dirty with demon blood. But going up against the beating Buddha is a different story. That old demon's strength is in a league of its own. Quick kills are out of the options and defense is necessary. Foch knew that, and he started doing what he does best, going on a rampage with reckless abandon. The unlucky Nightwalker that received his forceful attack was sent back a few meters away with his sword shattered. Kaliana saw this as an opportunity to make use of Klaus de Bell to carry on the momentum that Foch created and push the reinforcements back. Klaus swiftly obliged, busting out his elaborate horn to blast some menacing tunes. He screamed at the other end of the horn with gusto. His voice was amplified by multiple times blasting out a sonic boom that interrupted the Nightwalker's seemingly unstoppable push and slaughter. Kali spotted one of the remaining Envy Army mages and ordered him to provide some cover. The demon army respects hierarchy, regardless of their creed and mortal sin. The Envy Army mage immediately followed the instructions of the lieutenant with no questions. Another one of the surviving mages joined in, and the duo conjured a smokescreen that enveloped the entire battlefield. As the smoke thickens, we see Kaliana calmly retreating amongst her troops who are running for their lives. When the Nightwalkers finally manage to bypass the cover, their weapons are drawn and they are ready to chase and kill. But Commander Camuriel had to disgruntledly order for her crew to stop as there was no need to go after the cowardly demons. That's only because they have an infinitely more concerning matter at hand to deal with. Layla seems to know the Forsaken One, grimly asking the enigmatic figure just why in the world he came here to join a war. The rest of the reinforcements from the Elf Kingdom had arrived, and the rugged hands of the blacksmith started shaking in disbelief as she touched Chief Garrick's lifeless body. Gulfin has arrived just a tad bit too late with her spirit beast, and she refuses to believe that the strongest orcs of their tribes were dispatched so brutally. Her tears could not stop flowing from her eyes as muffled screams of mourning agony filled the air. Then an idea came to her mind. Where in the hell was his son? Where in the world is Gul? Gulfin's motherly instincts were quickly triggered as she dashed off to look for her precious son. She arrived at the heart of the war zone where Elder Gareen's bleeding corpse and Gul, with his head swimming in a pool of blood, were located. First, it was the chief's death. Now it's her son who's in critical condition. Ran also made his way to the tragic reunion of mother and son. She checked Gul's vitals and assured Gulfin that the kid was still alive, just unconscious. Based on his savagely destroyed face, it's evident that the young orc is suffering a great deal of trauma all over his body. With a sliver of assurance that her son's still fighting for his life, Gulfin's grief turned into unbridled anger towards the Forsaken One. She just wanted to go in there and punch the lights out of the enigmatic figure for appearing in a place where he wasn't welcomed at all. Thankfully, Layla was there to stop her from doing anything rash. Gulfin understood that this is not the time to let her emotions consume her, but it's still hard to hold back when you see the people you love in such conditions. The Forsaken One finally made a move, a swift one at that. It was so fast that it felt invisible, When he slowed down, he was already sheathing his sword as the magical strings were cut into pieces. Then he walked ever so slowly, each step carrying an indomitable weight. The Nightwalkers braced themselves, but even they were unsure whether they could hold a candle against such a menace. The Forsaken just casually walked past them, not drawing his sword or doing anything outrightly threatening. Ran was infuriated. They were the pride of the Elf Kingdom, and they were just snubbed like they didn't exist at all. So he decided to pick up his dagger and attack from behind with desperate recklessness. Forsaken isn't going to let a mere dark elf assassin misconstrue his non-violent walk for weakness. He drew his blade once again. The next thing you know, Ran's dagger has shattered into a million pieces, scattering in the wind. The force behind the undetectable strike was so powerful that it almost blew his whole body away. Forsaken started stating that he has nothing against the orc named Gurren the Beastmaster, Ran, or anyone else around in this place. His beef is with Grutom, the dragon god of protection, and he just finished his mission. He doesn't care what these dark elves, orcs, or demons call him, for he is practically incapable of empathizing with their loss. He's just doing his own thing and standing by his principles. Gulfin's anger flared even higher. This Forsaken guy thinks that he can just walk away from doing something unforgivable without worrying about a target on his back. And that's precisely how he feels, and he's not apologizing for it. With his job done, and his reasoning stated, the Forsaken one jumped into the mountains in a single leap, leaving everyone speechless. Gulfin erupted in anger even harder, asking the Nightwalkers why they didn't even try to stop the Forsaken one from leaving. That guy killed Gurren in front of all their faces. Layla, the closest to her out of the crew, reasoned that there was simply nothing they could do. Everyone knew the Forsaken one. Nightwalkers might be the greatest elf assassins in the realm, but they would undoubtedly lose all their lives if they decided to go on an all-out war against such a monster. It couldn't be helped. That guy is known for battling the gods by himself. Gulfin was also aware of that. She was just chock full of emotions right now. The whole Bubas village burned down in a blaze of mass destruction, leaving only the corpses of orcs, their pools of blood seeping through the soil. When the sun came up, the clearing operations were left to the Nightwalkers to take care of. They extinguished the flames and gathered the bodies. They arranged the fallen warriors neatly together out of respect. The Dark Elves took everything of value that could still be salvaged from the destruction and piled it up in one place. Gulfin took a piece of cloth and wrapped it around her son's unconscious body. She fashioned the cloth into a carrying hammock so she could move Gul to a safer place. The only remaining unburnt building was located at the highest point of a cliff. In there, Gulfin saw something that almost broke her completely. Corpses of orcs, the neighbors that she grew up around, bloodied and mutilated by the heartless demons. At the forefront was Gul's Auntie Jiram, lifeless and covered with her own blood. On the other side was the familiar yellow uniform that the doctor's assistant always wears. She was surrounded by the earth formations beckoned through the newly acquired spirit beast. From a single glance, Gulfin could already tell that it was that sweet girl, Dura. Behind them were the rest of the orcs, the young, old, and the disabled. Those who didn't directly participate in the war were crushed just for the hell of it all. Gulfin crouched down to pick up a kid's toy. Layla couldn't believe her eyes. The cruel demons massacred innocent people, including children. No one deserves this meaningless war. Ran has always been someone deeply connected with his emotions. Right now, what he was feeling in his heart was so unbearably painful that it was manifesting physically. He kneeled and told Gulfin that he was accountable for the terrible things that happened in this village. He knew that had he not come here to seek refuge, all these meaningless deaths would not have happened. The Dark Elf knew that it would be brazen of him to ask for forgiveness, but his heart just couldn't take the guilt. So, now all Ran could ask is for Gulfin to make use of his life for what she lost. Layla interjected that her comrade had already sworn his life to Lord Jeshurel, but all he can offer to atone for his blunder is his life and will. Ran is willing to accept any degree of punishment if it would ease the pain of the grieving Gulfin's heart. Her voice ran cold. She asserted that committing mistakes is one thing, but there's nothing in the world that could ease the pain she's suffering right now. Nothing in this world can give innocent lives back. So Ran can go ahead and let that guilt rot his freaking soul. That's the least that he can do. Walking away, Gulfin carried Gul out of the sight. After reaching the battered house, Gulfin's tough persona finally slipped and a mess made of tears was revealed. Even if she's anguished, they're short on people, so she had to pull her weight and pull the corpses out of the place using a wooden wagon. Thankfully, Layla was right outside, waiting for Gulfin to pass by. She wanted to at least take care of the injured Gul in the meantime. Times like these remind us that at the end of the day, Gul is just a kid. His home was destroyed, and his blood orc form could strain his body. It looks like Layla has an idea to ease some pain that the young orc was suffering from. She climbed all the way up to a cliff face where an old and massive tree was located. Layla gently laid Gul down on top of the roots of the old tree. Then the chanting starts. "O great god of the forest, grant us the gift of nature to restore what is shattered." She sent her praises to Kaz Og Bhutan. Instantaneously, the green and luscious leaves of the massive tree started to wither and die, drifting to the wind. Layla has beckoned a spell that trades the tree's life to hasten Gul's recovery from the injuries he's suffering from. When Layla handed the kid back to his mother, she explained that she helped close some wounds and regulated the pain. Now Gul's just in a deep slumber as he needs to recover. Gulfin thanked her for helping and continued hauling the dead bodies of her people. Seeing Ran standing up front, following her around like a lost puppy, Gulfin's scowl deepens. Ran is racked with guilt and just cannot move on without making things right. Gulfin finally gave in, albeit in the most Gulfin fashion. She harshly yelled at Ran to move his ass and find another cart to haul the bodies downhill. It's a rough start, but it's a start. The Nightwalkers have turned their attention to the dead demon bodies now. Gulfin's sadness was apparent in her eyes as she and Layla gently lifted Elder Guren's body from the ground. While they were about to line his body up along with the rest of the village, the sounds of cavalry started booming. If you were expecting horse hooves, you would be disappointed. If you were expecting sharp claws, then you're in the right place. Another orc tribe has arrived, coming all the way from the mountains with their wolf mounts. They are the supposed orc reinforcement from Butte village. They are awfully late if you ask me. Gulfin was just glad to see a familiar face in the commander of Butte's reinforcement unit, an imposing orc woman, a real warrior. Hearing the emotional rundown from the blacksmith, the commander instructed her army to help with all the work that needed to be done. The burly orc soldiers worked with a heavy heart, apparent from the weight of their swings as they gathered some logs for the dead. Some were on rope duty and some were on hay-related tasks. When the sun had gone down and the moon hung bright, Gul had woken up, but the deeper wounds of yesterday's battle were still fresh. Butte orcs worked hard to make individual deathbeds for every corpse that the demons killed. Before the burning of the pyre occurs, some words are said in recognition of the fallen heroes. Guren the Beastmaster was once a ferocious orc. He protected the peace that the orcs had enjoyed for hundreds of years, along with his brave warriors. And now he's dead. The legend has come to rest. The only ones to blame here are the demons that mercilessly killed so many innocent people just for the sake of feeding their own damn greed. Butte commander urged everyone present to remember this day, all their brothers and sisters. The atrocities that befell Bubas will not go unsettled. Turning their targets to the demons lit a fire in every warrior's heart. They all shouted their war cry in unison. As Gul watched the fire consume the people that he used to know, he couldn't help but feel like he failed them. He failed them, and they paid with their lives for it. Especially Gramps Guren and Chief Garrick. They believed in Gul to complete the objective and save the tribe from annihilation. He failed his perpetually angry auntie. He didn't even see her at the last moments. Gul felt the crushing weight of letting his brother and sisters down, even including the other kids on the block. He suddenly remembered the last thing that his auntie said to him before going on an adventure. The waterworks just kept coming, covering his face with tears and snot. Auntie just wanted him to get back home alive, and now she's gone. Elder Guren's body lay on top of a haystack as it burns hotter and brighter. He looks at peace. Then Gul remembered the arrogantly twisted expression of that demon army captain as he stole the spirit beast out of the old orc. If he remembers correctly, that decrepit demon's name should be Shuya Un. That's the guy. That's the reason why all these bodies are burning at the pyre. His grief and sorrow steadily transformed into a pure form of hatred and fury as more and more of his people turned to ash. Meanwhile, back in the Elf Kingdom, Khal Mors was still en route to Pubiz with his full gear on. His stamina had been zapped for quite a while now. But at least he was almost there. Almost out of the Elven Kingdom border. Just from a single glance, you could tell that this guy wouldn't last long at all. His legs were all wobbly already. He was huffing and puffing for air like he just ran a marathon without proper training. Finally, this forgettable character crashed out, kneeling to the floor, weakened and thirsty before even getting out of the elf territory. He desperately screamed for Layla, but his voice couldn't travel that far. Besides, there were more important things to do in the ruins of Bubiz. Now let's turn our attention to a character that actually matters. Lomi and her wild talons, lustrous shoulders, she's truly a perfect specimen of the bird species. She was the white blur that left everything in the dust. This time, however, a familiar face spotted her while running around. The snake. Lomi did what we call a manual brake, stopping an unstoppable momentum by using her feet as brakes until skid marks and smoke appeared on the ground. She did such a masterful maneuver on account of seeing something beautiful out in the wild. It was a worm, a real live one, just crawling on the ground as if teasing Lomi to take a bite. The last time Lomi encountered an opportunity like this, she failed to grasp it because of some bird-on-bird interference. But it was different now. She was stronger and faster. Just look at those chicken muscles. The bird started gliding through the ground at breakneck speeds. Thankfully, her neck could withstand the momentum. Her eyes were thoroughly locked on one thing and one thing only, the tastiest snack in the world. This time, even without her dark elf master calling the shots, Lomi's supercharged quick attack was still as crispy as ever. The gummy worm-looking worm was just chilling on the ground, minding his business and whistling to the tune of the serene woods. That piece might be ending soon now. A pervading feeling of dread consumed the worm in an instant. Lomi and her hungry mouth were already open, ready to scoop in the snack of the gods, the chicken gods specifically. But she stopped the attack just centimeters away from the heavenly taste. Sensing danger incoming, Lomi started flipping and flapping her wings really hard. Thanks to that, she avoided being included in a pretty heavy crash in the position where the worm was located. Who's behind that crash, you ask? Well, it's the snake, of course. He's been waiting for Lomi since that time after the goblin lair raid. What happened before might have been a failure, but this time is different. The snake has gathered some friends to go up against a single chicken. A deer that looks as though he has seen some stuff in a brutal war. An ape that looks perpetually constipated can't be a good sign, right? There's also a boar that looks like he doesn't know what's going on, or where he is. He just looked confused. Another one of the team was an oddly human-looking sly fox that looked like he was up to no good. The kind of guy that you keep your children away from. Then there's the snake. Nothing much could be said about him. He's arrogant, he wants to eat, and he's very bad at picking his prey. Finally, a rabbit of some sort. I don't know, guys. Can you help me identify what this thing is? The deer asked the snake if the chicken was their target, the one who bullied the slithery fella before. Confused boar chimed in that they shouldn't underestimate the bird. She beat the snake, also known as Ebiog after all. Besides, he can sense a great deal of disturbance on the ground. Ebiog protested that he wasn't bullied, he just got beaten out of pure luck. But with their numbers right now, they'll certainly come out with a winner-winner chicken dinner. Lomi just watched those fools blab around with each other as she gathered spit in her mouth. The cocky chicken then spat that gob of spit with the maximum level of disrespect. To be honest, Lomi doesn't even remember the snake. He doesn't know who any of these animals are and how they know her. What she can't afford to forgive is the fact that they denied her delicious snack. According to the laws that Lomi abides by, interfering with her sacred snack time is a crime punishable by death. Lomi readied her fighting stance, opening her wings on either side while locking onto a target. Incidentally, this was the moment when Elder Gurren was just about to go on a crazy killing spree after humping down to enemy lines. His Grudem, the dragon spirit beast, flew to the skies. It was so powerful that it served as a beacon of light, splitting the dark clouds and letting everyone peer into heaven. All of that occurred while Lomi was getting ready to strike. The angle she was standing on made it look like she was the one with the draconic spirit beast. The coalition of wild animals was hit by the shockwave originating from the war zone, knocking some of them out. Even some stalwart trees had a hard time holding onto the soil with their roots as the wind intensified. Ebiog the snake was the first one to recover from being blown away by an otherworldly force. When everyone regained consciousness, the band of wild animals kneeled down in unison. Ebiog just turned from a pure hater to a Lomi fanboy. He even formally announced that Lomi would be the newly crowned leader of the dense rock forest. The diverse set of animals all witnessed the real power of the new queen, or at least they did. Nevertheless, Lomi has been hailed as the new monarch of this territory. She couldn't help but say holy bok. Lomi didn't even have to lift a single feather to make those animals submit. The novelty of it all was quick to grow old. Anywhere that the queen goes, her followers do as the name suggests, they follow annoyingly. While they were making their way closer to Buba's village, they spotted the Forsaken One traversing the forest in the same direction after being drawn by the spirit beast. Lomi and the rest knew not to mess with someone carrying such a deathly aura. The animal party just looked at the Forsaken One, and the Forsaken One looked back stiffly. One look was enough to freak the cowardly lot. Their best plan was to act like stupid animals with no thoughts of their own and throw their best tantrum act together. The Forsaken One wasn't impressed, I'm sure of that, but at least they didn't piss him off or anything in the same vein. Lomi just gave a meaningful glance, eye to eye. The chicken and the man that slays God passed by each other as if they were peers at the same level of power. Forsaken just continued his hurried journey, while Lomi did the same. Under her breath, Queen Lomi prayed for her master to hold on because right now, she was completely and utterly lost. A few days had passed since the invasion and destruction of Buba's village. Let's delve into the broader world and its future prospects. In the realm of humans, the heavy and dignified footsteps of Guildmaster France echoed through the halls of the Initio Guild. He headed to the infirmary where Red was undergoing treatment, and the lucky bastard had a bunny girl as his nurse. Unfortunately, the other members of their humble party weren't as fortunate, losing their lives and sustaining heavy injuries from the Demon Scout Party. Spade, the platinum-ranked adventurer, made a surprise appearance to discuss matters with Master France. In his hand was an ominous card depicting the King of Diamonds. Flashing this card led him to be escorted by the guildmaster to a hidden dungeon. There, some unfortunate sap had been detained with a broken leg, crudely splinted to minimize the damage. It turned out that Slick, the greed demon scout, had been caught alive and injured thanks to the guildmaster's timely response. Spade had been brought in to get answers to some very important questions regarding the demonic army that had marched through the woods that day. In an unknown corner of the realm, a human wearing a golden crown and a brawny orc stood side by side. They turned around to welcome some guests. It was two old geezers wearing orange and red tracksuits respectively. The orange geezer was your typical small and bald elder, while the other one looked like an older version of a Dragon Ball character. The man wearing the crown seemed shocked at the appearance of these two. In the realm of the elves, Lord Jesherel looked as though he had just received some extremely grim news. Perhaps it entailed the passing of an old comrade in arms. Receiving the report from his Nightwalkers awakened something slumbering inside the king of the elves. He swiftly gathered the strongest and brightest that his castle offered, a roster of 5 impressive-looking generals. There was a woman swordsman who looked like she dominated men for fun. Another one looked like she had the ultimate paladin build with the matching seriousness to boot. On the other side was a young man in golden armor. He might have looked younger than the rest, but he looked like he could get things done. The other armored knight looked like he had been through some tough scuffles in the past with all those battle scars. The last of the 5 generals wore what looked like a deer skull mask, but that didn't hide the impressive physique under the armor. Back in the little village plagued with goblin problems, things had settled down after the destruction of the lair. Osan and Rashan were back to their peaceful farming life. Miss Reika shone as brightly as the day before she was kidnapped to be a human sacrifice for a pagan goblin ritual. Speaking of goblins, it seemed like the remainder of the dead king's crew had somehow survived. They were still as lively and rowdy as they were when they tried to adopt Ghoul into the group. Few factions were aware of what happened to Boobies, and one of them was the supposed reinforcement troops from Butte. The orc on the throne of Butte had just received news of the neighboring village's demise, and he wasn't pleased at all. He was so pissed off that he cracked the letter cylinder in half with his strong grip. The troops that arrived late had a somber look on their faces as they gathered the blades of their fallen kin. Gulfin had never stopped working to give her people the passing rituals they deserved for fighting tooth and nail until the end. On top of the cliff, in front of the old tree that had withered and died to heal Gul, the weapons of the fallen soldiers stained with demon blood were displayed. Gulfin kneeled down and gently rested a hammer on a platform. Gul followed the lead of his mother and carefully placed a meat cleaver on the pile of memories. This was their way of honoring those who had passed while fighting until the end. Auntie Jeram's butcher's knife was front and center on the platform. Now that everything is done, the neighboring orcs must grieve and regret in their own way. They packed their bags and went back to Butte with the thought of how fragile an orc village could be against forces outside of their understanding. It seemed like the Nightwalkers were also preparing to depart now that Boobiz, or at least what was left of it, had been taken care of. Gulfin didn't make a fuss. She was practically numb from the pain of burying neighbors, peers, and loved ones. She just waved at the Dark Elves in farewell. Commander Kimuriel gave a sincere bow, full of unspoken thoughts that both parties understood. With their mission in the Orc village finished, the elite assassin crew of the Elven Kingdom was now heading back to wherever the Lord's orders took them. Gul was still recovering from his injuries. There were still wounds all around his body, and he was having a hard time walking. The boy was resting at the end of the wagon. Who knew where the Wheel of Fate would take this small group? That must be one of the things going through the young orc's mind right now. Gul had been changed. After seeing what he saw in the war zone, could you blame him? Now, how about peeking at the side of the demons, where Vice Captain Isel Wright had made some semblance of recovery? At least he had regained the sharpness of his stares. Foch, the beating Buddha, had returned to his peaceful old man state. Klaus de Bell still looked and acted the same. Kaliana was quite different, though. She had led the remaining troops to safety after the Wrath army incurred some heavy losses, including their big boss. Standing at the top of the demonic food chain was a man with an immeasurable aura when you placed him on the cool scale. The demon on the throne simply proclaimed that someone had committed a grave sin against their creed. I would recognize the trio being accused of committing atrocities in the previous invasion. Suri Min, the Baron, and their scumbag of a boss. The demon on the throne demanded a detailed explanation from his pet winged demon, straight from the Envy Army captain's mouth. If you thought that Shuya Aoun would go back to being a decrepit old man from being a literal purple Hulk, then you're wrong. The bastard had turned the clock back to look like he was a lot younger and more buff than he was before. Envy Captain Shuya Aoun would be a problem. I could already feel it. Every time Gul closed his eyes, the image of Shuya Aoun draining the Elder's spirit beast out of his body played out in the young orc's mind. He felt utterly helpless. Gul just wanted it to stop. His teary eyes and innocence made it hard for him to witness such inhumane acts. He screamed and pleaded for the old man's suffering to cease, to no avail. The screams of agony got louder instead. In Gul's dream, the longer it went on, the redder and bloodier the floor he knelt on became. One moment he saw Gramps being torn apart by a sinister demon. The next, he was in the field, surrounded by corpses piled up by the invasion. Then he was back with Elder Gurren, Shuya-un not in sight, but the damage was done. Blood had been spilled, and the pain could not be taken back anymore. Gul remembered the cranky old man's pleading last words for Grutom to please take good care of the young lad for the sake of their long-running partnership. The kid still didn't understand it right now. In his mind's eye, Shuya-un looked even more grotesque than in real life. A monster that would always linger and make him worry about the day the demon attacked once again. The series of disturbing imagery was literally cut short by the unfathomable sharpness of the Forsaken One's blade, spilling orc blood and putting an end to the cursed war. Gul opened his eyes, bawling his eyes out after experiencing such an intense dream. The people around him were mortified for the boy. Ran, who sat beside him, tried to approach gently, putting his hand on Gul's shoulder and making sure he was all right. Gul realized he was just stuck in a hyper-realistic dreamland of what happened that night. He chose to tough it up and said that he was fine. Layla and Gulfin didn't buy that for 1 second. He'd been crying and screaming in his sleep. His mom just took him into her embrace, and Gul started whimpering again. When Gulfin assured him that it was okay not to be okay, the young orc started turning into a sobbing mess, crying even harder. The poor boy had been thoroughly traumatized. Thankfully, he had his mom by his side now. She was certainly a big help in comforting Gul, even though she was also suffering from all the losses. Their wagon finally reached Butte, the definitive orc city. It was an orc settlement much bigger than Buba's village. Their architecture leaned on the edgier side, but their walls were tall and strong. The wagon slowly entered the city, escorted by multiple soldiers. Some citizens waited by the entrance, looking forward to the arrival of the reinforcement unit they sent out and the guests. Dak Tunder, the chieftain of Butte, took the time to personally come out of his office to welcome the newcomers with open arms. But the circumstances didn't really merit celebration. Gulfin, Gul, Ran, and Layla hopped out of the wagon to properly pay respects to the city's leader. Dak Tunder might have looked like a brute, but he and his crew were very respectful and returned the gesture. Gulfin broke the silence and personally gave the chieftain the rundown of what happened in the war. Seeing that Elder Gurren wasn't aboard the wagon, Dak reckoned that even the Beastmaster didn't make it out of that hell alive. Gulfin recalled how the cruel demons burned Bubiz to the ground with reckless abandon, how they killed every last orc, scouring the entire area and even slaughtering children. Dak put his hands on her shoulders with a comforting tap. His palm was big and strong. Then, he tightened his grip to signal that he understood. The chieftain's one regret was that, despite his incessant urgings, Elder Gurren seemed fully intent on cultivating a culture of peace, rather than preparing his men for battle, keeping them sharp. As a result, he effectively threw away his life and the lives of the people he was supposed to protect. Hearing that from a stranger didn't sit right with Gul. How dare this bastard badmouth the elder, tarnishing his memory? As he clenched his crutch, Chief Dak was amused to sense some anger directed at him. He didn't rebuke or scold Gul. In fact, he liked the fact that the kid had some anger inside. That's because Gul's not the only one angry here. Everyone is. And here in Butte, they had been prepared for anything for quite some time now. Dak increased his volume, letting everyone nearby hear his next words. A proclamation that the orcs of Butte were always prepared to fight for the honor that was once taken from their kind and trampled upon. He wanted Gulfin to hold him to his next words. A promise that they would strike back against the demons that had caused everyone too much grief and suffering over a single night. Dak Tunder raised his hand, urging his people to sound their war cry, bolstering their morale and pumping up the crowd. Huga Baruga, forever. The first place in Butte that the party swung by was the Butte Smithy. It was extremely different from the ones in the Elf Kingdom and the janky one back in Bubiz. This one was grand and intimidating. Inside was Butte's resident blacksmith and Gulfin's longtime comrade, Garothmuk. Seeing a familiar face cheered her up for the first time in a while. She had collaborated with this guy smithing all kinds of weapons in the past. He noticed that she didn't come alone. Being accompanied by dark elves was quite weird, as Ran and Layla's kind were rarely seen in these parts of the world. The well-trained Nightwalkers immediately bowed respectfully, extending their greetings to the resident blacksmith of this impressive city. Garothmuk was pleased to interact with a respectful lot. But there was one more visitor that he didn't recognize, a little kid just standing there silently. Gulfin kneeled down and properly introduced her son to Garothmuk. The kid didn't even move a single facial muscle. Garothmuk also kneeled down, checking Gul out from head to toe. He didn't know that Gulfin had a son, but the kid was too skinny. In Butte, muscles were everything. She decided to slam her buddy's back with as much power as she could put behind a casual slap in the back. It looked like they would be staying at the smithy for a while, so Gulfin wanted to see their rooms. Garethmuck quickly answered back with a slap of his own, laughing as he pretended to almost forget to show them their accommodation. It was all fun and games for the two of them, though. For Gorothmuck, it was an honor to have such a legendary blacksmith stay at his humble smithy. While she went for a tour, Gul wanted to go out for a bit. Gulfin understood. She gently reminded him to try his best not to get lost. Ran wanted to accompany Gul outside, but the young orc insisted that he needed to be alone for now. The dark elf was taken aback. Since when did this kid start talking this way and being so sullen? So Gul headed out to explore the city with nothing else on his person other than the wooden crutch. He took in the sights and saw the burly orcs of Butte. He saw just how similar this place was to his home. Gul walked and walked until he reached the city gates. There, the gate guard double-checked if he would be fine outside the city. The kid respectfully answered that he would. Mr. Gate Guard took a second to look at Gul and think. At the end of the day, he let the kid wander off outside. He looked like he desperately needed some alone time. The topography and ecology near this orc settlement were foreign to Gul. He passed by animals that he didn't recognize and traversed stretches of land that he'd never seen before. A colorful bird kept following him through his journey of silent contemplation. It was all serious and meditative until the bird landed on his bald head, chirping aggressively. When the colorful bird finally flew away, it left a nice little gift on Gul's head. A very stinky one. Even that tomfoolery wasn't enough to break Gul out of his pensive state. He just kept on walking with bird poop on his head. He entered a wooded area, and it seemed like something was there. Gul had walked so far for so long that the trees shading him from the sun had become a canopy obscuring the moonlight. He finally grabbed the bird poop on his head. The old Gul would have made a scene about it. He had come far to the point where he didn't recognize this magical place at all. He looked at his hand, some doo-doo remnants still stuck on his head. It looked just like a tiny Hershey's kiss. After tossing the bird excrement aside, Gul happened upon what looked like a fairly tall hill. Seeing the elevation rise in this area reminded him of the days when all he could think about was conquering the highest places around boobies to scream his heart out. In hindsight, those might be his best memories. The feeling of freedom that shouting your name into the boundless expanse of the wilderness is unmatched. He remembers his cheesy monologues about how this magnificent view is only reserved for the greats to see, and soon he shall journey to the lands beyond the horizon and be known as Gul, mighty conqueror of mountains. Saying those ambitious words gave him a boundless sense of happiness. But calling himself Gul the Great right now just sounds like the biggest and worst joke possible. Maybe great at getting lost would be a more apt description. All that self-deprecation and the slow decline of his confidence in himself literally tripped him up for being distracted. But it was more like a kick straight out of the afterlife from his favorite auntie. Gul grimaced. Now he was sure that he was really lost. He looked angry, but at least he didn't look empty anymore. He threw his crutch away. It's just a reminder of how weak he truly is, so good riddance. Gul continued to walk deeper and deeper into the mysterious woods with the light of the fireflies as his guide. It's already dark, and by this time Auntie Jerome would be getting ready to kick his ass back home if he fails to bring a single wyvern egg back. For a moment, he really felt like he'd get scolded, or he'd get chased by a meat cleaver as always. But no, that won't happen again. Gul started sobbing uncontrollably, realizing that things would never be the same. Boobas had been wiped out, and along with the orcs were the memories and the routines that he knew and loved. Snot and tears obscured Gul's vision as he continued letting it all out. Unbeknownst to the young orc, two figures are hiding in the background, observing. When he got close enough, Gul started noticing that something was amiss. He looked at the two hidden figures, and it looked like they were more scared of him than he was of them. They stepped out of the dark, revealing some sort of fox-humanoid hybrid. The bigger one has tattoos and the smaller one wears light armor. Upon seeing what they looked like, Gul was all the more surprised, shocked, and scared at the same time. The fox duo held each other in fear of what was to come, not realizing that they're all just yelling in fear for no reason. After a few minutes, things settled down. The light fox was chill. They just got startled by Gul's sudden appearance, that's all. They even picked up his discarded crutch along the forest trail. Light Fox urged Gul not to throw things away all willy-nilly, for he was hit by the crutch and incurred a nasty bump on his head after being hit out of nowhere. Gul could only scratch his cheek coyly and apologize to his new bra. Heavy Fox shifted the conversation to the young orc, asking him what he was doing in this spooky place all alone. While they were at it, the Heavy Fox wanted the Light Fox to prepare a fire as it was already getting chilly. It was about time they set up camp anyway. After making a proper bonfire in a decent clearing, the three shared a few moments of peaceful silence, just taking in the heat of the fire and dispelling the chill. Gul broke the silence by saying he'd never seen talking dogs before. Being labeled as dogs immediately offended the duo. They are supposed to be a part of the proud family of foxes. They're a lot different from dogs. Gul was still a bit skeptical, so he tried to touch the heavy fox's scruffy face. He didn't like that at all. When he moved the touch and scratches into the heavy fox's head, it was evident that this guy liked it very much. Gul admitted that he's in this place because he's unfortunately lost. He's not from around here after all. So are the foxes. They might not be from here either, but they know their way around. Let's just say that they're looking for stuff that's worth money, but they are not bandits. That's a clear distinction. Heavy Fox rebuked Light Fox for even bringing up the B word. They're already struggling to get a clean reputation, and the dumb fox just keeps on ruining it. Seeing the duo's dysfunctional dynamic, Gul stifled a laugh, the first one in a long time. Heavy Fox worries that Gul thinks they're a joke now. Well, it's not much of a loss since the Orc Kid is carrying nothing of value. Verbalizing the words Orc Kid made the Fox duo freeze for a moment. They started thinking about the implications of those words. Heavy and Light held each other in fear as they screamed and put a safe distance from Gul. The young Orc also panicked, thinking that there was some kind of unknown enemy behind him. The Fox duo just fearfully asked him if there were other orcs hiding in the woods and if Gul was just their bait. Gul asserted that he was alone, and that was enough to calm the duo's nerves. The kid was confused and asked what was the matter. Well, the orcs around here are madly intense. Butte is known for producing orcs with huge muscles that will slap you from a distance. Just thinking about it would be enough to make a bandit shiver. Light Fox thinks that even their city is badass. It's called the Ironclad Butte. Light gestured in the air, drawing a booty, and promptly gave it a firm slap like a true man of culture. Then the duo started howling into the wind, their snouts facing the moon. They insist that they're not dogs, but this isn't helping their case. Gul admits that orcs are truly amazing. They are a bunch of strong and dedicated beings. Maybe the same can't be said for the small ones like himself. Butte is also his destination. He needs to get back, and these foxes might be of some help. They do know the way, and they could guide him, but they wouldn't dare go anywhere near that place. Light Fox suddenly got serious and sincerely asked Gul what brought him to the middle of the woods all alone. The answer was simple. Really. He just wanted to clear his mind of something very painful. Light playfully bantered that they definitely didn't see the kid crying in the dark over that something. Gul himself hasn't fully processed his emotions yet. But whatever that is, Light is sure that Gul can make his way around as long as the kid continues moving forward without stopping. He must move with all his strength unless he wants to be stuck in whatever he's feeling right now. Hearing those unexpectedly wise words from these non-bandits kind of cheered Gul up. But before they do anything else tonight, Heavy Fox wanted to show Gul something amazing, some peppers. It's the new precious stuff, one might even say the good stuff. Gul scanned the peppers over, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he had already seen this thing in his auntie's book of herbs and spices. Light's mood got a little lighter. Are they going to cook these peppers? Gul prefers eating meat, though. But Light asserted that this thing is good for clearing your head. Like Gul, have you never had something so spicy that it makes you forget all your problems? Well, these peppers are so hot that maybe you'll even see the gods. Light Fox didn't waste any more time and put a pepper in his mouth. He chomped down hard, and the strong flavors immediately coated his taste buds. He's used to the spice by now, calmly letting the smoke out through his snout and ears. They promptly offered Gul one piece and urged him to take a bite. Gul was down to try it and ate the whole thing. Unlike Light, he had a tough time taking it in. He coughed and coughed until the smoke left his system. Light laughed and told him to take it easy while Heavy got some water. Gul gulped down the bottle like he'd been stranded in a desert. With some semblance of relief, he asked the Fox duos just what kind of pepper he really took. A few moments later, he stopped caring about it as he felt like he was floating in a stupor as the trees around them bent and rotated. Heavy started panicking. Instead of water, he accidentally gave the kid the elixir, and it was their last bottle too, but there's no need to worry as they have plenty left to share. Emptying the elixir bottle, the Fox duo started howling to the night sky once again. When the blissful blankness of the pepper and elixir were combined, the trio felt compelled to sing a very suspicious cover of Young, Wild and Free by Snoop Dogg and Wiz Khalifa. The unlikely group danced and sang the night away. For the first time in a long time, Gul seems as though he's back to his old happy self. They've been singing for a while now and singing the song so well that we might just get a copyright strike from Wiz Khalifa himself. It's just like Gul befriending some complete strangers to have the best night of his life after a heart-wrenching tragedy. The next day came, and Gul's head felt like it was being split open. The duo reckons that it might be because of the pepper. There's no need to worry, though. Today's the day they head for Butte, so Gul can go back home. Once they got close enough for Gul to see the gates, the Fox duo also went on their merry way to who knows where. Outside the city walls was Gulfin. She'd been standing there for a while, worried sick for her child. When Gul got close enough, she started yelling at the kid for wandering off to God knows where and scaring his mother. Gul's antics earned him a bonk to his head when his head was already hurting from the night out before. After that, Gulfin toned her voice down, notifying her son that there were some people in the city looking for him. Gul heard some familiar voices calling his name, and it felt like a lightning bolt struck inside his head. It was the kids of Boobiz. They managed to survive alongside Bob the Builder and Warrior Lozen. Gul immediately started tearing up at the sight of his comrades. He thought they were dead, that he'll never be able to play and cause trouble with them. The kid threw his crutch away and dived in to hug his boys, all of them tearing up for this heartwarming reunion. Gul smells like crap though.